Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How you doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today, I'm going to be talking about some primers. We are doing Beauty 101 primers. This is a new series on my channel that I've been thinking about and making notes on for a very long time, and I went back and forth on whether I was going to do this video or not, to be honest, because I'm not the end-all speak-all for all things beauty and the products that are out there, but I do get a wealth of knowledge in my position. I am a field leader for Ulta Beauty, so I do get a lot of education. I don't want to come across as the person who you should go to for all the education, because that's not the case. Everybody's skin is different, everybody's journey is different, but I do want to give you guys all the information that I know and how I see it. So it is a video that I've went back and forth on because I don't want the comment section to blow up on you didn't say this, you didn't talk about this, you're wrong on that. I want to remind everybody that this is based on my education and my experience. So where education may fail me, experience jumps in, right? So I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. It might be a long video. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. But for those of you who are interested, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a field leader for Ulta Beauty. Like I said, I get a lot of education in my position. I like to bring you that education here on my channel, but ultimately I'm just out here talking about makeup because I like to talk about makeup. And I'm assuming if you're here, you also like to talk about makeup. I'm hoping that you want to stick around, subscribe to my channel before you go. I am kind of a kick in the pants to hang out with. There's a ton of videos on my channel to peruse and seek enjoyment in, and I'm pretty certain you can find something on this channel that you enjoy. So I do hope that you'll want to join my crazy YouTube fam here, but if you don't, that's okay too. I just hope that you enjoy the video. With that said, let's jump in to this video. I'm wearing lashes today because my eyes have really been going through the ringer lately, and I have an eye appointment, but it's not for a while, so I'm just trying to be as kind to my eyes as possible. At the end of the day, I really can't see anymore, and that's alarming, so there's that. Okay, so today we're going to jump into primers. I'm calling this the Beauty 101 series. And I figured it was fitting to start with primers. I do have a lot of notes, so I'm just going to kind of go through it. For those of you who maybe have been around the makeup ringer, you know what a primer is, so this might not be the video for you, and that's totally okay. But for those of you who maybe want to know some more information about the beauty space and primers and what they do and what the difference is, I'm specifically talking to my sister, who begs me to teach her things but never has the time to come over because, I'm super busy and she's also super busy. I am making this video for her, really, let's be honest. But for those people, this video is for you. So let's talk about primers. So first and foremost, face primers are going to help you with the longevity of your foundation as long as your primer isn't working against said foundation. So with that said, we'll talk about some of those reasons why a primer might work against your foundation. Primers can make your skin look airbrushed by adding those smoothing or blurring kind of effects to your skin prior to putting any makeup on top of it. Primers can create a barrier on your skin that allows the makeup to sit on your skin while not sinking into the pores and creating acneic issue for you. It helps to keep those pores from getting clogged. Some are multi-purpose primers. I do have a lot of multi-purpose sitting in front of me. The multi-purpose primers likely are going to lend to not having to use as much makeup on your face, maybe a lighter level of coverage than what you typically might go for full coverage makeup, because they have like some color correcting qualities about them as well. What I likened it to is thinking about paint on a wall, right? When you go in to paint a wall, you don't necessarily need to use a primer, but sometimes if you're needing to cover up certain things or, colors, you use a primer in the paint world to help the new paint set beautifully on the wall without a bunch of streakiness or exacerbation of the issues that you have on the wall to begin with, right? Words of wisdom for you though, primers are never going to be as impactful as a really good skincare routine. So if you don't have a really good skincare routine, it's probably not going to help you nor hinder your makeup application by adding a primer to it. It might minimally help you, but it's not going to correct the bigger skin issues that are causing what you think you need a primer for. So if you're purchasing a primer to fix a skin issue, consider instead a great skincare routine utilizing products that are going to help that skin issue for you. Your skincare routine will dictate whether the primer is going to work to its fullest potential or not the other way around. Your primer won't work or will work against you if you are using the wrong one for the foundation that you are trying to apply to your face, or the wrong one for your skin type. Good rule of thumb is mini silicone primers work best with silicone foundations, and water-based primers work best with water-based foundations. I myself have found that that's not 100% true. I can pretty much use any form of primer under any form of foundation that I have in my collection, but I do see more problems, more pilling with like silicone primer underneath a water-based foundation. It's like oil and water, they just don't mix sometimes, and it's only in certain areas of my face, to be honest. A best practice is to put a primer on and let it sit for probably 60 seconds before putting any kind of makeup on top of it. I typically will do my skincare routine in the morning and then put a primer on top of that skincare routine after I've given my face about 5 minutes to soak in the skincare. Then I will prep my eyes. Then I will put the primer on my face. Then I will finish my eyes, because that lets the primers sit for the exact amount of time that they need to for both face and eyes. All right, so let's walk through some primer types. So first one I'm going to talk about is an illuminating primer. So an illuminating primer is going to have glimmering particles in it that give the skin a glow. Not necessarily glitter, but glimmering particles for a glow or a radiance or a dewiness to your skin. These are primers that are typically best for maybe dry skin because it will make your skin look more alive, more healthy, more glowy, whereas a dry skin looks rather matte and flaky most of the time. One of them that I have in my collection is this one here, which is the Dr. Brandt Pores No More Luminizer primer. This is one of my favorite primers. What I would say is it's not necessarily got that glitter in it that you think of when you think luminizer. I know a lot of people think that a luminizing primer is going to have glitter particles in it because it is known for making your face look shiny or dewy. I hate saying shiny because a lot of people put that into the same bucket as oily, and that's not it. This is actually one of my favorite luminizing primers, but I have several, if I'm honest, and many of them are multitasking luminizers, meaning they have a little bit of color correcting quality to them as well as luminizing and helping my makeup last. What I would say about this one specifically is it does have a little bit of a tint to it. So it does give a little bit of canvas stability, which is making everything on my face look very consistent when I rub it in to my skin. And this one is just kind of a like a really minimal dewiness to it. It does give it a little bit of a glowiness while also just kind of creating a consistent canvas to work on. So it's got like this just subtle dewiness to it, but it has created like a semblance of color. You can see on my other hand, there's a lot of like peaks and valleys that you can see with the super dry skin. but also this one just has a little bit more luminization in it, but it's not glittery. It just has a nice, healthy appearance to it. Next one I want to talk about is mattifying. So a mattifying primer is going to be best for oily skin beauties out here. It's going to help reduce shine, help control sebum, that is what creates that shine. It helps foundation look better for longer, especially in oily areas. And it's great for, like I said, those oily beauties out there, but also for combination skin where you might be oily in your T-zone, but dry on the outskirts of your face. So the two that I have in here, I don't really have a mattifying primer in my collection, so to speak, because I am dry. So I don't need a mattifying primer, but a couple that I feel like do the job for me, that I also have some oily beauty friends out there that swear by them as well, are the Photo Finish Primer by Smashbox. I think that this is a smoothing and blurring primer, but also kind of mattifying. And the Hourglass Veil Primer. This is a mineral primer. What I love about this one specifically is that it goes on just so beautifully and feels like silk. So it's going to smooth your skin, give you kind of this airbrushed quality about it, but also mattify everything. I also love this one because it really does have this like almost blue cast to the white once you get it on your skin. As soon as you rub it in, that blue goes away, but you're left with like this brightening effect on your skin. You see how white it looks compared to my other hand at the moment. It's just so smoothing, so blurring, and looks pretty matte, right? But it also looks perfected. The other one is the Smashbox Photo Finish, like I said, and this one is a gel formula. A lot of mattifying foundation or mattifying primers are kind of a gel formula. It looks just like a water droplet, but it also has that smoothing and blurring effect, but I think it's just a smidge bit more mattifying than even the Hourglass Veil is. I think that you can see there's literally no glow coming through, no oils coming through, but this one I think feels a little bit more silicone-y on the skin. Any kind of foundation that you put on top of that that might have a little bit of sheeniness to it is going to show up a little bit more matte. I find that to be true for a lot of my smoothing primers. They take away a lot of the sheeniness that might come through in a foundation. The next one would be a color correcting primer. This is a primer that maybe is, you know, multitasking. The one that I have brought out, which isn't necessarily out there as a color correcting primer, this, I mean, it is, but it isn't. This is the Live Tinted Hue Guard, and the Hue Guard is an all-in-one daily zinc mineral sunscreen moisturizer and primer that protects skin from harmful UVB rays and blue light, but it also has a color to it for purposes of color correcting. So you can see this one is peach. What I love about this one is when I first purchased it, I was like, ew, but it does have a really decent SPF in it. The SPF is 30, and it does not leave like this oily residue that a 30 SPF might, but it does color correct quite nicely. It looks very smoothing, but it also feels super moisturizing without feeling oily. A lot of moisturizing primers do have a little bit of an oiliness or wetness that you still feel upon application of it that might get in the way of powder foundation. I have several that sink straight into the skin, so not a big deal. But that one just feels really nice, and I feel like it has color corrected, and you can see the color that it was is not still on my hand as a peach. So I feel like it's a good representation of an all-around great color correcting primer. Hydrating is going to be that creates an extra layer, not the layer of moisturization in your skin, but an extra layer of moisture, and maybe gives your skin kind of a plumpy look to it, or helps with the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles because you're getting that extra layer of moisturizer. So this is of course going to be great for dry or dehydrated skin, maybe aging skin, and the one that I have to show you is the Smashbox Primerizer Plus. This has been a cult followed primer on the market. It's not my favorite hydrating primer. My favorite hydrating primer, if I'm honest, is the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base. I love that, and it feels like skincare, smells like skincare, goes on like skincare, but also helps with longevity of makeup. What I will say is most of my moisturizing primers, besides that face-based one, don't really help, in my humble opinion, with the longevity of the makeup, except for that they help your skin hold on to the makeup in a different way, meaning like your dry patches are not going to like have the makeup like adhere to them and then flake off throughout the day. So most of your moisturizing primers are going to be a little bit more liquidy. You can see that that is just coming down my face or my hand. Again, the Enriched Face Base doesn't do that. It's a really thick, creamy, lovely consistency. But what this does is just add, like I said, an extra layer of moisturization. What I don't love about a moisturizing primer, and it's not here nor there, this is why I started doing like my skincare and then letting that sink in and dry, and then putting on my primer and then letting that sink in and doing my makeup last, is mostly because at one point in time I was using mostly moisturizing primers because I have really dry skin and I thought that that's what my skin needed. And these take a long time to dry. So this is still a little bit wet. And if I put a primer or a foundation over the top of it, it might cause some pilling issues because it's still just a little bit wet. So we also have pore minimizing. Now I want to remind you that this was a smoothing primer. That is going to be a pore minimizing primer. This is also going to help with some pore minimizations, but one specifically made for smoothing and pore minimization. I actually have a couple here to show you. Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer, which is again a cult followed favorite here on YouTube. And then I have the Huda Beauty Glowish Blur Jam. So these are going to be a little bit different in consistency. You will note that these came in jars while everything else has been in like a squeezy tube or on a pump. These are thick boys. This is what they look like. They are really, really thick. So the Glowish one looks like this. And when you put it on your skin, it goes on kind of like a paste. And the idea is to kind of push this into your skin more than it is to rub it into your skin. I will tell you that most of the time I will rub it into my skin and then I will go back over and just kind of push it into my face. And I only use these kind of primers in certain areas. Like I get a lot of texture through here, so I might use them on my like textured areas, not for pore filling, but for smoothing out those textured areas. I will also tell you that these kind of primers can cause a lot of problems with your makeup application if you are using way too much, or if you are using not enough, or if you are not using the correct kind of foundation with them. They will cause an intense amount of pilling. So Tarte Timeless Smoothing looks the same way. It is kind of a paste. I have found that this one is a lot easier to work with. I can move it around on my skin, press it into my skin, and this one works really, really nicely with almost every foundation that I have put over the top of it. The Blur Jam is still, or this is the Tarte Timeless. The Blur Jam is still kind of not dry yet. It's still a little bit tacky. The Blur Jam will take a long time. That's one of the complaints about this primer that I have found on the internet, is that it takes a while. You have to let it sit on your skin for quite some time before going in with a foundation, or it will cause problems like pilling with your foundation. If you use too much of it, it will cause problems with your foundation. It's starting to pick up and pill on my hand right now. I don't know if you guys can see that necessarily, but it's starting to pill up on my hand. So imagine putting something over the top of that and having that whole thing like happen. You have to be very specific about the amount that you use with these. They're a little less forgiving, and what kind of foundation you're using over the top of them. But they are really good for texture. They're really good for pore filling and blurring of your skin. They're really good for people who maybe have had acneic skin in the past and are looking to like perfect their skin. It does a really good job of getting into those like quote unquote problem areas and just creating this like really smooth finish to put your makeup on top of. But you have to be so exact with these kind of primers. I would say that is less so, in my humble opinion, with the Tarte Timeless Smoothing. I actually quite love this primer, and I'm not a pore filling girl. I don't feel like I have a lot of pores that need help, but I also feel like even my textured areas are not necessarily the worst on the planet. I don't spend a lot of time with those primers specifically, and the Blur Jam is kind of a problem for me. That one has done me dirty a couple times, so it's not my favorite. The last one I want to talk about is a gripping primer. And so a gripping primer can be a pore filling primer. A gripping primer can be all kinds of primer. I have a gripping primer that's a glowy primer. I have a gripping primer that is just a long wear foundation primer. I have a gripping primer that is more of a moisturizing primer. This is the Urban Decay All Nighter Long Wear Foundation Grip Primer that preps, smooths, and perfects. So these primers are going to be primers that once you put them on and they dry down, that Blur Jam is starting to pill. I don't know if you guys can see this little white ball here. That's from the Blur Jam. Once these gripping primers dry down, they've got a little bit of a tackiness to them. I think that you maybe can hear that. These are going to hold on to your makeup and really help your makeup last a very, very long time. I do have a couple of them. If I'm honest, gripping primers are really, really nice, but they're not my favorite because of the texture of them. A lot of them have this like Elmer's glue feel to them, and that isn't something that I love. But if you let them sit for a minute, they're going to grip onto your makeup really, really well. The gripping primer's sheer purpose is to help your makeup last longer. It's going to feel sticky, and that's totally normal if that's what you're wanting with your primer. Just to bring it all together, we have illuminating primers that are really great for dry skin, that are going to do their best to make your skin look healthy and glowy, maybe dewy. We have color correcting primers that are going to give you a little bit of color correction properties, as well as a primer that's going to help your makeup last longer. We've got some hydrating primers that are going to help give you just an added layer of moisturization. I myself have found that those kind of primers don't really 100% do much more than that added layer of moisturization. The only one that I have found that is a moisturizing primer, like specifically a moisturizing primer that also really helps with my makeup longevity, is the Bobbi Brown Enriched Face Base. We have gripping primers that's sheer purpose is to have your makeup last longer. We have blurring or smoothing primers that sheer purpose is to help blur out any pores or fine lines or, you know, texture that you have on your face. And then we have also mattifying primers that are going to control sebum on your face, are going to help you manage your oil control. A really, really good one that I have heard about most recently is Milk Makeup has one in a black container that is specifically oil control, and I've heard really great things about that primer. So if you are looking for a specifically mattifying primer, look at that one. These are going to help you with things in your makeup process. There's a lot of people on the planet that do not believe in a primer. I, for one, feel like I am a primer connoisseur. I have a ton of different primers. I've tried a ton of different primers, and I really do like primers. But primer is not going to be your magic wand. It won't make everything perfect on your skin that's deemed imperfect by you, but it will help give your makeup the best chance at lasting as long as possible and looking as seamless as possible. There are different kinds of primers. We have like eye primers, lip primers, lash primers. All of these provide safeguards to those parts of your makeup application process. I use all those things. I use a lash primer, I use a lip primer, I use an eye primer. Lip primer will help smooth out your lips and aids lipstick wear time. So you're going to see a longer wear time from your lipsticks if you're using a lip primer. Eye primers help prevent any kind of creasing, fading, movement of eyeshadows, smudging. A caveat to this, a concealer is not an eye primer. It is going to exacerbate eyelid concerns rather than help eyelid concerns. A concealer is meant for your face, your under eyes, not for your eyes. I know that I'm probably opening up a can of worms here, but concealer is not meant to be eyelid primer. It's not made for eyelid skin. Yes, your skin is all your skin, right? Yes, it's the same skin, but your eyelids are a much more delicate skin than what is maybe on your under eyes or the rest of your face. Lash primers help prevent clumps, and they will strengthen your lashes and help lengthen your lash look as well. So every primer has a purpose. Many of them are within these same realms, right? They have multiple different ways to go about a primer, multiple different functions that they're specifically for. There are many different types of finishes and consistencies, and there are two very important distinctions. So you will have water-based or silicone-based. So silicone-based primers are going to be slippery. They're going to feel like silk going on your skin. They're going to create a smooth canvas. They do this by filling any opportune areas that you have. So the texture might be a little bit more thick in consistency. It's not going to drain all the way down your arm or down your hand. You know, it's going to be more of a, like, you can pick it up with your pinky fingernail versus put it in your hand because you know that you can't like hold it. Think through the lens of the Benefit Professional. It comes out of the tube like a worm. That sounds gross, but it comes out of the tube instead of like a lotion. It's like a straight line of primer. That is a silicone-based primer. These allow makeup to glide over the skin, and they don't allow makeup to sink in very well, which means your makeup is going to be sitting on top a little bit more than sinking in, and their sole purpose is to make it so that your texture is smooth canvas. And some people use these primers because they have acneic skin and they don't want the makeup to sink in to their pores and clog them. They also will help trap any kind of moisture in your skin because they're sitting kind of on top of your skin, right? So you put your moisturizer on, you put your silicone primer on, it's going to trap whatever you've put underneath it in there, and it's going to keep whatever you put on top of it outside of your skin's barrier. So using too much of these though will cause pilling. We saw that a little bit with the Blur Jam. Even though it's not a silicone based primer, it is very much a peely primer and acts like a silicone based primer. So there's that. Using too much of it can cause pilling. May not be suitable always for dry skin because it will not do any favors for any kind of like dry patches that you have. They're usually called silky or photo finish primers or high def waterproof primers. So even like this one, photo finish, is going to be kind of that silicone base kind of feel primer. Water-based primers are usually listed as oil-free primers, and they are lightweight. So they don't fill pores, they don't fill unwanted texture, but they're not always silicone-free, so some of them will help with those things as well. Water-based adds hydration and feels natural on the skin. So it's not going to feel heavy on the skin, leave a layer of something that you can actually feel. And I know for me with sensory whatevers, I can feel heavier foundations and primers and all the things on my skin really easily. And I prefer a lightweight foundation, like sheer to medium, low medium coverage is about as high as I want to go, because the rest of it I can feel on my face and it's way too heavy. All of your water-based primers are going to feel less like that and more like just regular old skincare or water on your face. Water-based primers are going to be less mattifying than silicone primers, and they will typically have a dewy or a radiant finish. Using a silicone primer and a water-based foundation may cause some issues in the foundation application. It may cause graininess or difficulty blending your foundations. It's not necessarily going to not help. They're not necessarily going to counteract each other, but you may find that if you're using a silicone-based primer with a water-based foundation, it's going to maybe take you longer to blend it out. Maybe it'll take longer for it to sink in, right? Because silicone-based primers will kind of create a layer for your makeup to sit on top of versus sinking into your skin. It's going to be difficult to blend it out because water-based foundations want to sink in, where silicone is going to prevent it. Foundation may move around, which isn't ideal in any situation. And the wear time is going to look incredibly different. You're going to notice it wearing away faster in certain areas specifically. You're also going to notice it your foundation wearing away in like places that you touch, because again, the silicone based primer is going to prevent that foundation from sinking into your skin. When it's a water based foundation, that's what it wants, right? That's what it needs to do in order to perfect itself. You can use different primers across your face and conquer all different concerns across your face, i.e. I will use maybe my Timeless Smoothing Primer on my cheek areas up here because I do have some texture on my cheek areas, and I might use the color correcting benefit that I get from my Live Tinted Primer underneath my eyes where I've got my dark circles, and also on my chin area where I might have some scarring, or up here on my forehead where I have some melasma, along my upper lip where I have some melasma, and then the rest of my face might get a primer that is just that added layer of moisture because the outskirts of my face are really, really dry. I can do that and it's totally fine. And the difference is where I'm using certain primers, the foundation might sit differently. But if you get primers that work together, or you get all water-based primers and then put them on your face and then use a water-based foundation, it's going to look fine. You're just fixing every area that you find your skin to have an issue or a concern with different primers that will help fix that concern. As with anything, too much or too little is going to impact the ability for your primer to work in the way that you want it to. So just because you maybe have more texture in certain areas or bigger pores in certain areas doesn't mean you need to use more of said primer in those areas to create a different view than, say, the other side of your face. If you use too much, we saw it with the Blur Jam, it will cause issues. Issues look like pilling, issues look like foundation wear off sooner rather than later. It could be a multitude of things, but your primer will not work the most effective way based on how much you put on. I would say a thin layer of primer, little dab will do you. To be honest, when I put primer on my skin, I literally squirt one pump onto my fingers, and that is the primer that I use. I don't continue to pump and pump and pump. When I'm using a primer like, you know, the Blur Gem or the Tarte Timeless Smoothing, I will take my pinky finger and just take out the smallest amount, and that suffices for my entire face. I will also say that, you know, primer is something that I wear sometimes on its own. I have one specific primer that is a luminizing primer. This is the Yensa Color and Face Tone Up Primer Essential Glow. It's got 8 super black essences, and it is really great for color correcting and also creating a really healthy glow. I wear this all the time on its own. Another one that I wear all the time on its own, which I'm not sure is supposed to be a primer, but this is the Eavesdrop Lit. This is an all-over glow enhancer. It's a glowy enhancer, which leads me to believe it's a primer. I use this all the time on its own. So primer can be worn also on its own. It does not necessarily have to go under makeup. And if you can't find that perfectly BB cream or lightweight or sheer wash of color for your skin in a foundation line, use a primer. They're beautiful, and they really do help your skin look the best they can look. With that said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video today. Let me know what you think about this Beauty 101 series and what you'd like to learn more about. I already have some ideas from the comment section on some things that people want to know about, but put it down there. I would love to do a video for you. This is a series on my channel I plan to continue for quite some time. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to education of some of the things, all of the things. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to me if you want to come back and see more. I would be ever so grateful to have you on board in my YouTube fam. I love my YouTube fam here. You guys are my people, and why not share life with the people that are your people? I hope that you are all well, that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best you can in this world out there. And I hope that you are all loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.